Hello Alex, thanks for your time. Tell us a little bit about your activities in the pro audio business.
Absolutely. I've been at the sort of major studios for the last 10 or so years working for various different productions, from television to feature films. I've been in the advertising realm as well, and ended up getting my start in that in sound effects recording, actually, and managing some of the larger libraries and catalogs of sound effects for some of the larger facilities out in Los Angeles.
I remember when I first saw you on Potato Chat's channel, which is a YouTube channel for video topics. I think that was also the time when you started your successful YouTube channel. Is this correct?
Yes, that's Gene on the Potato Jet channel, and he and I have actually known each other for quite some time and gotten to work together on a number of things, and got started with a YouTube channel to share some of the experiences I've had over the course of the last little while in, again, the major feature film kind of realm. And the whole point is trying to make the techniques and the ideas used in that realm a little bit more accessible to anybody, because audio is kind of an esoteric art, and it can be challenging to get your head around. It can be challenging to know where to begin. So understanding the foundations of it and building from there, I think, is really important, and hopefully it's helping everybody sound a little bit better.
Yes, I'm sure it will help many users. Nevertheless, I find your channel covers a wide range of audio topics. The information you give to the audience is always very detailed. Do I see that right?
I appreciate that. I try to be thorough, but again, it's a lot of the technical stuff is a little bit challenging to really wrap your head around if you're not coming from a place of already knowing a lot of the foundations. So trying to cover at least some of the basics and do a little bit of the deep dive, I'm hoping that helps everybody.
The VT403WA, which has an omni pattern, was recently used in one of your projects. Tell us a little bit how you used this waterproof and very sound resistant lav mic.
I was really excited to put some of the voice technologies LAVs through the paces on a pretty specific type of car recording. A little while ago, there was a world record speed attempt by a company called SSC North America, and they make a car called the Tuatara. The Tuatara is at this point the fastest production vehicle in the world, and there was a record speed attempt done out in Pahrump, Nevada, and I was asked to record it. So that involved a lot of planning and a lot of working around the limitations of the vehicle itself, because when you're doing something like that, of course, there was a production crew to work around. There's also the limitations of the vehicle and the vehicle manufacturer. You have limitations like heat and wind and dealing with the levels, the actual dynamics of the vehicle's character and its loudness and all the rest of the things that go into it. So a lot of things to take into consideration. The decisions that I ended up making were to put a custom VT500 inside the engine compartment and then a VT403WA on the exhaust. The low end of the exhaust was really, really intense, so I wanted a microphone that was going to capture that but also not be overwhelmed by it and cause problems later on in the recording. So the VT403 actually has a little bit of a diminished frequency response in the low end, and it flattered the exhaust a lot better than the VT500 did, because there was so much of it that the VT500 is a little bit more of a full sounding mic. It sounded a little too heavy on the low end side of things. So making that decision while capturing makes it much easier in the post-production process to then process those sounds and get the most out of them. In the engine compartment, there's this really interesting breathing character that the car has. It sort of inhales and exhales as shifts are made. And when you're trying to go 300 miles an hour, those shifts happen very quickly. So it's loud, it's chaotic, but it also has this really polished, almost weaponized sound. It's a very, very strange character for a car, but really fascinating. So the VT500 was able to pick up all of the right frequencies there too, and just having that single microphone in the engine compartment covered most of the sounds the car made, because first, there wasn't really any room to get anything anywhere else, and second, the engine was so well contained within kind of the structure of the vehicle, it really only produced sound out of a couple of different spots.
Does the high temperatures cause a problem for the mic?
We ended up doing a bunch of different test runs with the vehicle before doing the actual speed attempt, and in calibrating the engine and making sure everything was actually what it needed to be in order to make the speed run, we ran into a problem that caused the engine to climb up to almost 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, or almost 1,000 degrees Celsius, which obviously isn't good For a car in general, this is of course a specific car that can handle those sorts of temperatures, but the engine compartment as a result got really, really hot. And fortunately, the car's structure allows a lot of airflow through, and they've done a very, very good job of engineering everything to be as efficient as possible, both with speed as well as wind and cooling. So there was a lot of bleed of that heat onto the microphones, but we didn't encounter any problems with overheating or gear melting or stuff catching on fire, which has happened in the past with plenty of mics, and you end up losing some gear over time if you're recording a lot of cars with various different situations. Fortunately, with this recording, we didn't have any problems with heat, didn't have any problems with wind. We were able to plan everything out and really dial into what the car was going to do so that we could make the right placement choices as well as the right mic choices from the beginning.
Do you have an advice for people who want to start with sound effects recording? Which sound sources are easiest to record and which are the most difficult?
If you're looking to get into field recording specifically, I'd say the best thing you can do is record as often as possible. Experiment with different mic placements and perspectives, and try and think about how you're going to use a sound after the fact while you're recording it, and capture it in a way that it's going to make that easy. You want a little bit of a perspective on certain things. If you have Foley footsteps, for example, you don't want a microphone right next to your feet. That's not how you hear footsteps. You want a little bit of space in between what your sound source is and where your microphone is, so it sounds a little bit more natural. You can definitely move things closer or further depending on what you're trying to do, but again, the best way you're going to find this stuff out is to just experiment with it. So my number one piece of advice would be just get out and record.
This is a nice closing, Alex. It was a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much for the interview.